Hey guys, it's David from Automotive Press. I'm super excited right now because I'm going to be comparing the all-new 6th Gen 2025 Toyota 4Runner to 2024 5th Gen 4Runner right here. I want to thank one of my viewers who was nice enough to give us this vehicle, and so that I can compare the 2024 to 2025 6th Gen to 5th Gen. I'm going to compare the quality outside, inside, also quick drive on both of them. And many of you guys remember that I've owned many different versions of 4Runners over the years. Between 2016 up until most recently, I've owned 7 different types of 4Runners, including the Limited and the TRD Pro. So pretty familiar with it. And you know that I just absolutely love 4Runners in general, whether it's an old one or a new one. I like them both. But let me tell you what the differences are between the old and the new, and I'm going to try to tell you which one I would buy if I had a chance to buy either one of these. Let's go. Welcome back. So I have the all-new 2025 4Runner here. This is the TRD off-road version of the 6th Gen 4Runner. Right behind, I also have the 2024 4Runner. That one's limited though, so it's not 100% apple to apple, but it's close enough in terms of quality comparison and also alignment and paint check, that kind of stuff. And you would remember, if you are watching my videos, that both of these models are built at the Tahara plant. The old one and then the new one, despite many rumors that this might have moved to Mexico, it never did. Still built in the same line alongside the Lexus GX, which is also new, as well as the Land Cruiser. They're all built in the Tahara plant, beautiful factory. Let's see if there are any differences in terms of external quality between the new gen and the old gen. You know what I'm going to do. I'm going to measure the panel gaps as always. And it's 3mm here, and then at the back a little bit better at 2.9. And then it's 3.1, and then 3.6mm, always a little bit wider in the middle here, and then a little bit lower at 3.2. So the dimensions are pretty close in terms of gap to the older model, but I have the proof and evidence right here. Let's measure it and see if it indeed is close or if the old one was better. Well, it's not too far off. It's actually 2.9mm though. There, and 2.9 here, and it's straight as an arrow, so a little bit better, not too far off. 3.1mm, so it's actually the same as the new gen. 3.7, so actually that one's slightly better. And then back here though, it's down to 3mm, so that one is 3.2, this is 3mm. So almost identical, you know, within a very small percentage difference. But the old gen or the 5th Gen 4Runner is tiny bit better in terms of panel alignment. What about just in terms of how things line up? I think it's about the same between the two models. Let's take a look. This is perfect, and you won't find any cars that are built better than this 5th Gen 4Runner in terms of overall quality. But you know what? This one is actually really good considering it's brand new model that just came out, all new design. It's actually almost as good as the old gen, I would say. There's tiny amount of differential here compared to that one, where that one stays really narrow all the way from front to back. But this looks perfect. This looks really good too. Yeah, this all looks good. I can see a little bit of a stamping distortion along here, which I don't see on that one. But this is a brand new model, first year of production. They'll get those things fixed up. But the gaps will not change over time because the gaps are due to the actual die and the mold that punches these things out like a cookie cutter, and those things will not change. So the actual gaps will stay the same, which is fine because it's still world class, around 3 to 3.2mm, give or take. But what about the paint job? Let's take a look at the paint job of this new gen 4Runner and compare to the old one. So on this 2025 4Runner, which has the beautiful heritage blue color, excellent paint job as I expect from Tahara built cars. It does have a fair amount of orange peels, they always do. So let's just take a look through here. Still fair amount of orange peel. Again, a little bit of distortion here, very little though. And let's take a look at the 2024 version. This is a different color, of course, but it is a additional layer on this one because I think it was called Blizzard Pearl. It's an extra cost to paint. This one has lots of gloss, beautiful paint. In white paint, it's actually hard to see the orange peel, so I can't really see, but it does seem to have a little bit less orange peel than the new one. Now let's measure the paint thickness. I'm gonna go back to my new model and see if it's any different. I suspect that there will be some differences. Let's see if there are any. It is aluminum now. Okay, so 105 microns in terms of hood, 110, so pretty consistent. It's kind of what I expect from most Toyota models. 121, a little bit thicker there. 112, pretty consistent. 144, a little bit thicker here. Let's measure one more time just to see what's going on. 138, so this is a little bit thicker on the rear quarter panel. Let's compare those data to the previous gen 4Runner. It's 135, so a little bit thicker, which is what I expected because this is the special paint here. 102, no, that's about the same. It's actually a little bit thinner. 117, one more here. 112 and 125. So you know what? It's literally identical. And this is actually what they call a side panel, which is one large side middle piece. And sometimes when they paint this piece here, it's a bit different from these ones, so you end up with a thicker paint. So paint thickness is about the same. So I'm going to say that the exterior quality is literally the same. I would say within, 5% difference in terms of paint thickness, in terms of alignment. I do admit there's a little bit more orange peel on this one, but it's a bit hard to say if that's indicative of all the paint for the 2025 or only for this heritage blue. And because this is white, it's a bit hard to compare. But I'm going to declare that the exterior quality is basically identical between 2025 and 2024. And that says a lot because this is the first year of production. Things like a paint job and clear coat and all that stuff will get better as time goes. And of course, this is the last year of the 5th gen, which has been around for 15 years. So if you waited 15 years, obviously the quality of this will be even better, and you could end up being better than the 24s. So right now, exterior looks really good. Let's take a look inside. So I'm inside the 6th gen, all new 2025 4Runner. I'm going to compare the interior quality between the new and the old version. And even though we have vastly improved interior engineering and design with a 14-inch display, another 12.3-inch digital cluster here, improved technology. I even get a powered column tilt and telescopic steering here. So lots of technology improvement, and of course I'm going to talk about that in my other video, but let's focus on the quality right now. Unfortunately, what I'm not happy about the new gen is just the amount of hard plastic they use. There's a nice grip here for the handle, but otherwise, hard plastic, hard plastic, hard plastic, hard plastic, soft on the armrest, more hard plastic, and this is thankfully not glossy piano black, but obviously hard plastic. Nice grip here, and continue on with more hard plastic. So that's something that I wasn't too happy with because it looks a little bit cheap. I'll show you on the old 4Runner what the difference will be. It's more functional, more practical, much more up-to-date in terms of technology, but I just think that it looks a little bit cheap in terms of the use of the hard plastic. Even here is hard plastic. So let's hop in quickly to the 5th gen and see what the difference might be. All right, so I hopped into the 2024 4Runner. It's exactly the same as what I used to own. I owned, again, many different variations of 4Runner, but most of them have been limited, and for that matter, most of them have been white. So this is very familiar to me. And you know that the design haven't changed for many years. So it is definitely outdated. Small screens, no digital display here, just a little bit in the center. And technology is not as up to date. You don't get powered tilt and telescopic steering. You don't get a wireless charging pad. You don't get wireless Apple CarPlay, and so forth, so forth. So obviously, technology-wise, you're going to be much happier with the 2025. Having said all that, look at the amount of soft plastic they use. So this is all soft plastic. Even the real stitching here. It is hard plastic here, but armrest and all the way to the front part of the armrest is also soft plastic. This is hard plastic, but it's a matte finish with a bit of textures. So it looks a little bit better than the shiny kind of plastic that used in 2025. And also you get a bit of a glossy kind of fake wood finish, which we don't get anymore in the new 4Runner Limited. This is kind of old-fashioned design, but frankly, I kind of like a little bit of wood here and there. It looks nice. You get a wood here as well. So overall, it is, technically speaking, inferior to the new model, but in terms of just the overall feel, when you sit in here and you touch some of the softer plastic, it feels better. So this is actually different materials. It's hard plastic, but it's a matte finish. And it's also soft cloth here and different colors. So even this part looks a little bit more rich and looks a little bit more decent than the 25s. So I wish that they didn't replace all the soft plastic with hard plastic, because it just looks a little bit cheap on the new gen. But having said all that, of course, I like the new technology, and you can't beat that difference because this one is outdated from that perspective. Now let's go back to the outside and do a little bit more of an engineering analysis, and then we'll take these two cars for a drive. So I'm back outside, and I want to talk about the most controversial part of the 5th versus a 6th gen 4Runner, and that is a powertrain difference. This is now a 2.4 turbo without a hybrid on this particular model. This is a TRD off-road. You can also get 2.4 turbo with the hybrid on the more higher trims, including the Trail Hunter and a TRD Pro and a Platinum. Here in Canada, the Limited comes with a 2.4 non-hybrid, but the Platinum has the 2.4 with a hybrid, so there's a little bit of difference. Obviously, much improved performance out of the smaller engine because it has more horsepower, has more torque. Both the power and the torque happens at lower RPM, so noticeably faster. Well, in fact, it is measurably faster, but also noticeably faster when you drive it, even without the hybrid. The hybrid one is even faster still. So no complaints about the performance. Also has 8-speed automatic versus a 5-speed. So in terms of shifting, in terms of performance, acceleration, obviously the new gen is substantially better and actually more fun to drive than the old one. I'll talk about that a little bit when I take these two cars for a drive. But having said that, a lot of people don't like the fact that this is a 4-cylinder. It's also turbo. It's obviously much more complicated than the 24 and the 5th gen 4Runners, which came with a 4-liter 6-cylinder engine. This is the tried and true classic old-fashioned Toyota engine that has been around for a long time, and over the years it has gone through so many iterations that this might be the most bulletproof, most reliable V6 in the world. In fact, they still use this engine on some models, such as the 300 series Land Cruiser. In some parts of Asia have this engine still. Very simple, easy to maintain, nothing really goes wrong with this engine, but it doesn't have that much power. It's made it to a 5-speed automatic, which is ancient. So yes, it's reliable, simple to maintain, it'll last a lifetime, but there's not a whole lot of power or torque. You really have to step on the gas to pass a car on the highway, or when you go up the hill. I always remember struggling and actually feeling a little bit intimidated trying to pass other cars on the highway, just because it doesn't have enough oomph to do that, and therefore it's not fun to drive. This is very much a truck-based vehicle that feels like a truck. It still feels like a truck, the new one too, but this engine reminds you that you're not meant to drive this car fast or to drive it like a performance truck, because it obviously isn't. So you have to kind of decide what's important to you. If you really want maximum reliability, simplicity, you want to do your own maintenance and so forth, obviously the previous gen 4Runner is unbeatable from that perspective. And I don't mean just from the engine and transmission perspective, everything else, whether it's suspension, underneath the chassis, interior, whatever it is, this is the most reliable vehicle in the world. It's been proven over and over again over many different data, whether it's JD Power, Consumer Report, or my own experience, or feedback from the owners in the forums. This is the most reliable. It has not always been the most reliable if you go back 10 years ago, but it is most reliable now. And then we go back to the new 4Runner, which is a beautiful truck, and I really like driving it because it's so much more fun to drive. It handles better as well, but no one knows for sure what long-term reliability will be. What I can tell you is that this is still a Toyota, still built in Japan, still built at Tara factory, which means that the engine is also built in Japan. And this is no longer a new engine. It's been around for a number of years now, and many different iterations of Lexus and Toyota models, and they haven't had any problem with that so far the last several years. So can I assume that means that this will be reliable for next 10 to 20 years? No, I can't tell you that right now, but can I kind of assume that this will be more or less within what I expect from Toyotas in general? Yes, I think so. I think it will be more reliable than other brands or other automakers, and most likely it will remain trouble-free. But is it as easy to service, especially if you're a do-it-yourself person? No, obviously not, because you can tell how complicated the engine is. They don't even put a cover on it now, so you can see all the wirings. And obviously it's not for everyone to try to service this, especially if you buy the 2.4 Turbo 4 with the hybrid. That one is almost impossible to do it yourself maintenance because it's got a high voltage wiring as well. So it's something you have to think about. Everything is also new, transmission, everything, suspension, all that stuff, it's all new. And only time will tell whether this will live up to the 4Runner's expectations and reputation for long-term reliability. something that we all want to find out, but unfortunately you're going to have to wait a few years to find out what's going to really happen in the future. For now, what I can say is that I love the performance of this 2.4 turbo compared to the 4-liter V6. So let's take it for a quick drive so I can show you some other differences in terms of driving feel, which is the biggest advantage of the new gen 4Runner compared to the old one. So first I'm going to drive the 2025 4Runner. I have been driving this for a whole week and I'm impressed with what they've done. If you don't think about in your head about 4-cylinder versus 6-cylinder or turbo versus naturally aspirated, I know that might bother you, but putting that aside for a moment and purely judging from a performance perspective, there's no question the new one is substantially improved, because my complaints with the old one, which is the one that I owned many times for many years, it's just a lack of torque, a lack of acceleration, and also it just doesn't handle very well. In fact, it feels a little bit dangerous when you're driving through mountainous road and curvy roads. But this one handles well. It's quite precise. It's no longer hydraulic power steering, it's electric, but it has some of the older feel. They tried to build in some of the resistance and the feel on the steering. It's definitely lighter, but not as much as you think. But more importantly, the engine, if I step on like this, even with a base 2.4 turbo without the hybrid, plenty of power and torque, which happens at very low RPM. So really good performance. I'm very happy with the engine. Almost feels and sounds like a naturally aspirated engine, so they've done a really good job trying to mimic that feel. And so I'm very happy with the handling. It corners flat, it's quite agile for a body on the frame truck, and the engine is actually frankly really good. And of course with the 8-speed automatic, way better transmission shifting, much smoother and more refined than before. So all that is a good news. And again, if you don't kind of keep thinking about the 2.4 turbo versus a V6, you're going to be happier with this powertrain. It shifts better, performs better, it's quieter, and so forth. It all feels really good. The only complaint I have is, at least in this TRD off-road version, it comes with a Falken Wild Peak tires, which is a really good off-road tires, but it is a true off-road tires with the 3-peak mountain symbol on it, so it's all-weather. And even though the tire pressure is correct, I did check for that, it rides pretty bumpy compared to the old one. And of course, the one I'm driving right now, the 24 4Runner, is a limited, so it's a little bit different setup than this one with the off-road package. But I was surprised to find how bumpy it is. It's fine on a smooth road like this, but as soon as I go over some bumpy road like this, wow, it shakes a lot. It's not noisy or anything, just pretty bumpy. So you might want to test drive the TRD off-road before you decide. You might want to go with something like a limited or platinum if you want that smooth feel that you get in a more upscale SUVs. So you have to make some judgment call there. But otherwise, beautifully made, beautifully engineered, pretty happy with it. Of course, we don't know the long-term reliability in terms of how that's going to perform, but that's something we have to wait and see. So let's hop into the old 2024, which isn't that much older, and see if I do notice a lot of difference between 6th gen and the 5th gen. Alright guys, so now I'm driving the 2024 Toyota 4Runner, which is the last year of the 5th gen, and it's the one that I'm very familiar with because I had it for many years. I own many different versions of it, and in some way I wish I kept it because it is still very solid. And as you can tell right away, it is that classic 4Runner solid feel that you just don't get anymore in the newer models, whether it's the new 4Runner or the new Land Cruiser or even the new Lexus GX 550. None of them have this kind of solid tank feel that you get with this generation, because you have the old hydraulic power steering, which has the best steering feel. It's kind of heavy, but I like it that way. And the ride and the overall feel, because every panel is also steel, not aluminum, just have that kind of a tank-like feel. And the ride is actually quite a bit better. You know, I do admit this is a limited. That one is TRD off-road, but the owner of this vehicle did put off-road tires on this one. I think it's Toyo Open Country on it. So similar tire, but the ride is quite a bit softer here, not as rough riding. Maybe they tried too hard with the new 25 4Runner to make it more off-road capable and also to just be able to take the shock. So they might have made the damping mechanism a bit too firm and stiff. But at least on this particular limited model, which has all-wheel drive as well, it's very comfortable to drive, very comfortable to be inside as a passenger too. And of course the engine isn't nearly as good, You know, it's kind of weak actually, and if I step on the gas, it doesn't accelerate very fast. Let me try that right now. It takes a bit of effort because it's not a turbo, but sufficient. You know, you still have that kind of old classic feel and old truck feel that I think a lot of people like. Transmission is a 5-speed versus 8-speed, so obviously also not all that great, but the brakes feel solid, and most of all, like I said, the steering feels absolutely beautiful because I like this old hydraulic steering feel, much like I have it on my 23 GX 460. So yes, the 25 4Runner is faster, better performing, much better handling, very stable around corners, but if you want to kind of cruise and feel like you're driving an old-fashioned classic Toyota truck, this is still the one that feels most like that. So I really enjoy driving the old 4Runner, and given the choice, I guess for performance reasons, I will buy the new 4Runner. But if I want to just own something for 10-20 years and just enjoy the classic ride and the softer ride, this one will be it. Alright guys, I have been talking about the new 4Runner against the previous generation. I even have my 23 GX right behind as well. So at the end of the day, what do I really think of the new versus the old? Would I recommend this one over the old one? Well, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're really kind of a little bit shy about long-term reliability and you like the proven and reliable powertrain, you don't need the highest technology, you don't even care about the new design or new and improved performance, and you want something that's comfortable and it still looks good after many years, well, I cannot recommend enough the 5th gen 4Runner because it is reliable. It is still a good-looking, solid 4x4 that will probably last forever. Having said all that, obviously the new 4Runner is a better vehicle. It performs better, handles substantially better, accelerates with a lot more punch, and of course you get all the new technology, big screen, easy to drive as well. It still feels like a 4Runner, and we didn't lose the rear roll-down window as well, so there's not a huge amount of compromise going from the old one to new one. So maybe there's a bit of over-exaggerated feeling out there in the marketplace and among all the owners of 4Runners that don't buy the new one because it's too much of a compromise. I don't agree with that statement. In fact, this is a better vehicle. It does handle better. It's much more fun to drive. You can pass cars on the highway and go around the mountain roads with confidence. And generally speaking, I would prefer this over the older one. But if you're, again, a little bit worried about long-term reliability, or you don't want turbo 4-cylinder engine and you like the feel of a naturally aspirated V6, then go and find the 5th gen before it runs out, because eventually you're not going to be able to find one in a good condition as time goes. So it's something you have to decide. At least for me, I think I would prefer the new one only because it performs better, handles better, and it's more fun to drive. But if you ask me which car I would buy, because I want to keep it for 20 years with no problems or issues at all, well, I'm going to have to admit that it is still the 5th gen. Until such time, the 6th gen proves itself and proves to be reliable over long term. And of course, ultimately, I love my 23 GX at the back over there because it's exactly like a 4Runner, but more luxurious, and it has a V8 engine. Well, that's my first choice really among all three. Anyway, I appreciate if you can give me a thumbs up, make some comments below, especially comparing these two, and if you haven't done so yet, would you kindly subscribe as well. Until next video, I'm signing off for now. Thank you so much.